Welcome to Bedtime Horror, your portal to scary stories. It all began on a cold winter morning when I found an envelope on my doorstep. No return address, just my name scribbled across it in messy handwriting. I frowned, wondering who could have sent it. I opened it cautiously, revealing a single photograph. My heart skipped a beat as I recognized the image. It was me, walking to work that very morning. I shivered, feeling a strange mixture of discomfort and fear. Days turned into weeks, and more photographs arrived, each one capturing different moments of my daily life. I found them in my mailbox, slipped under my door, even taped to my car windshield. The angles were unsettling, as if someone had been watching me closely. Panic settled in as I realized the sender remained anonymous, leaving no trace. My once calm routine was shattered. Every stranger on the street seemed like a potential threat. I started glancing over my shoulder, paranoia gnawing at me. One evening, as I walked home after work, a shadowy figure ducked out of view just as I turned. My heart raced, and I quickened my pace, my own footsteps echoing loudly in the empty street. I confided in my friends about the disturbing photographs, hoping for reassurance. They urged me to go to the police, but without any concrete evidence, what could they do? As the photographs continued, I noticed a pattern. The locations grew closer, almost as if the sender was getting bolder. I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Then came a photograph that chilled me to the bone. It was taken from inside my own home, capturing me as I slept. I felt violated, invaded, and utterly helpless. I searched every nook and cranny, convinced that someone had broken in, but found nothing out of place. The walls seemed to hold secrets, and the corners held whispers of a presence I couldn't see. As I lay in bed that night, fear clenched at my chest. The sound of my own breathing seemed amplified in the silence. Every creak, every rustle sent my heart racing. And then, just as I was about to close my eyes, I heard a soft whisper, a voice too faint to make out. My breath caught in my throat, and I clutched the blankets, paralyzed with terror. Sleep evaded me that night. Every sound, every rustle seemed like a potential threat. Morning finally arrived, casting a weak light through my curtains. Determined to put an end to this torment, I decided to take matters into my own hands. I spent the day reviewing the photographs, looking for any clues that might reveal the identity of the sender. I noticed something odd, a faint reflection in a window, a shadowy figure barely visible. I enhanced the image and stared in shock. It was a face, distorted and eerie, yet somehow familiar. It was the neighbor from across the street, a man I'd barely spoken to. With newfound purpose, I approached his house later that evening. My heart raced as I knocked on the door, my mind racing with scenarios of confrontation. When the door opened, he seemed surprised to see me. "Can I help you?" he asked with a puzzled expression. I hesitated, then mustered the courage to ask, "Have you been sending me those photographs?" He stared at me for a moment before his face twisted into a sinister smile. "Photographs? Whatever do you mean?" His denial sent shivers down my spine. I was certain he was the one, yet his calm demeanor left me doubting myself. As I turned to leave, his voice trailed after me. "You should be careful, my friend. You never know who's watching." I hurried back to my house, my heart pounding. The encounter had only fueled my paranoia. I double-checked locks, closed curtains, and even unplugged electronic devices. That night, as I lay in bed, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being observed, that someone was lurking just out of sight. A sudden gust of wind rattled my window, and my pulse quickened. But this time, I was determined not to succumb to fear. I got up, my hands shaking as I approached the window. I pulled back the curtain, expecting to see darkness. Instead, I found myself face to face with a pair of eyes, gleaming with malevolence. A scream tore from my throat as I stumbled back, falling onto the floor. The eyes remained, unblinking, fixed on me. I scrambled to my feet, my heart racing, and bolted from the room. I grabbed my phone and dialed the police, my voice trembling as I relayed the events. As the sirens wailed in the distance, I peeked back into the room. The eyes were gone, leaving nothing behind but an unsettling feeling. The police arrived, thoroughly searching the area but finding no trace of the intruder. They assured me they would increase patrols in the neighborhood. Days turned into weeks, and the mysterious sender of the photographs vanished just as suddenly as they had appeared. Life slowly returned to a semblance of normalcy, but I remained haunted by the unsettling memories. The sense of being watched never truly left me. To this day, I still sometimes glance over my shoulder, expecting to see those eyes lurking in the shadows. The experience left me forever changed, a reminder that the line between reality and nightmare can blur in the most unexpected ways. The old cabin nestled deep within the woods had always fascinated me. With its rustic charm and secluded location, it seemed like the perfect place for a weekend getaway. My girlfriend, Emily, and I decided to spend a few days there, hoping to escape the hustle and bustle of the city. As we arrived at the cabin, a sense of tranquility washed over us. The air was crisp, and the only sounds were the rustling leaves and the distant chirping of birds. We unpacked our bags and settled in, excited about the prospect of a peaceful retreat. The first evening passed without incident. We cooked a simple dinner, lit a fire in the fireplace, and cozied up on the couch to watch a movie. However, as the night deepened, I began to notice strange things, a flicker of movement in my peripheral vision, a creaking floorboard that seemed to echo louder than it should. I brushed off my unease as the result of an overactive imagination. Emily, sensing my restlessness, suggested we go to bed early. We climbed under the covers, and I tried to shake off the feeling that we weren't alone in the cabin. Just as I was drifting off to sleep, I heard a faint scratching sound. I dismissed it as an animal outside, but the noise persisted, growing louder and more persistent. My heart raced as I realized the sound was coming from beneath the bed. "Emily, do you hear that?" I whispered, nudging her awake. She sat up, her eyes wide with alarm, straining to listen. The scratching continued, accompanied by a soft whimpering noise. Without a word, we both leaned over the edge of the bed and peered underneath. My breath caught in my throat as I saw a pair of glowing eyes staring back at us from the darkness beneath the bed. My mind raced, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. How could there be something, or someone, hiding under the bed? "Is it an animal?" Emily whispered, her voice trembling. I shook my head, unable to tear my gaze away from those unsettling eyes. "I don't know, but we need to find out." With a mixture of fear and determination, I slid off the bed and slowly lowered myself to the floor. Emily followed suit, her hand gripping mine tightly. As we crouched beside the bed, the scratching grew more frantic, and the eyes seemed to move closer. My heart pounded in my chest as I reached out a trembling hand, ready to pull back the bed skirt and confront whatever was hiding beneath. As my fingers touched the fabric, a sudden gust of wind swept through the room, extinguishing the candles and plunging us into darkness. I let out a startled yelp, my hand recoiling from the bed skirt. The scratching stopped abruptly, and the eyes disappeared. We were left in eerie silence, the only sound the echoing beat of my own heart. "What was that?" Emily whispered, her voice trembling. "I don't know," I replied, my voice barely audible. "But we're going to find out." Dread settled over us as we fumbled for a flashlight and mustered the courage to investigate what lay hidden beneath the bed. As I shone the light underneath, We both gasped in disbelief at what we saw, a small, makeshift den with scraps of fabric and food wrappers, and a pair of terrified eyes belonging to a frail, disheveled woman. The woman's wide eyes looked up at us, a mixture of fear and desperation reflecting in their depths. She appeared to be in her 40s, her clothes were tattered and dirty. Her thin frame trembled, and she seemed to shrink further into the makeshift den beneath the bed. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice softening with concern. I'm sorry," she stammered. Her voice was quivering. "I didn't mean to intrude. I was just looking for a place to hide." Her words sent a shiver down my spine. Why would someone be seeking refuge in our cabin? I exchanged a worried glance with Emily, and we both eased back from the bed, giving the woman some space. "What are you hiding from?" Emily asked gently. The woman hesitated, her eyes darting around the room as if expecting danger to burst through the door at any moment. "There are people, dangerous people. They're after me. I thought I could find shelter here." As she spoke, I couldn't help but feel a surge of empathy for her. "We can't just leave her like this," Emily whispered to me. Her voice was barely audible. I nodded in agreement. We couldn't abandon someone who was clearly in distress. I took a deep breath and turned back to the woman. "You're safe here for now," I said. "But we need to figure out a plan. Those people, do you know why they're after you?" The woman's gaze shifted downward, and a shadow crossed her face. I took something from them. Something valuable." As she spoke, the gravity of the situation sank in. We were now entangled in something far more dangerous than we had ever imagined. I could feel the weight of the decision we were making, to help a stranger who had stumbled into our lives, but whose actions had consequences we couldn't predict. "We'll do our best to help you," I said. "But we need to be cautious. We'll need more information." With the night stretching ahead of us, we formed a plan to keep her hidden while Emily contacted the authorities for guidance. However, as the hours passed, the woman grew increasingly restless. She kept glancing towards the door, her anxiety palpable. "I can't put you both in danger any longer," she finally said, her voice edged with desperation. "I appreciate your kindness, but I have to leave." Before we could argue further, she moved towards the door. "Wait!" Emily called after her, but it was too late. The woman had disappeared into the night, leaving us with a mixture of concern and unease. Our haven was now tinged with uncertainty, and the looming threat of those dangerous people cast a shadow over everything.